With the examples of the European Union, African Union, and ASEAN, rumblings of great Latin American unification and cooperation have only intensified in recent decades. While multinational alliances and organizations do exist in Latin America, like Mercosur, the Pacific Alliance, CARICOM, and the OAS, just to name a few, there hasn't been a central unifying force in the region, so far, due to a laundry list of reasons. Today we'll be looking at the challenges and potentials of a true Latin American Union, and speculate which current organization is the most likely to form it. The idea of a unified Latin America has been dreamed of for centuries. A unified Latin America would be grand, but its borders debatable. While Brazil is obviously Latin American, some CARICOM states can be more of a gray area. Belize, while speaking English, has just recently shifted to having a Spanish-speaking majority population. Still, its English-based colonial rule means it will likely be excluded from integration talks at first. Haiti does speak a Latin language, French Creole, and has close ties with Latin states, so it would likely also be included, although it does beg the question whether Quebec can be seen as Latin American. Guyana and Suriname would also be outside the definition of Latin America, along with English-speaking islands in the Caribbean. Puerto Rico, while also part of Latin America, has its foreign policy controlled by the U.S., and would not be part of a multinational organization without U.S. participation or independence. So this potential union of Latin American states would include 20 countries, encompass a territory of 19.7 million square kilometers, have a population of around 636 million, and a nominal GDP of 6.3 trillion, more than Japan. Would also have a GDP per capita of just below $10,000. So with these impressive statistics, it seems like a Latin American Union would be a great benefit for all, and a way for these nations to avoid being dominated geopolitically by the US, EU, and China. So what is stopping this? Well, integrating 20 countries across 6 different time zones that speak 3 different national languages and hundreds of indigenous ones is not an overnight thing. The EU did not start out at 27 countries. It started at just 6. So the idea then is likely to start with just a few major powerhouses, something that these 2 organizations we are looking at today, Mercosur and the Alliance of the Pacific, both aim to do. Let's compare the 2 organizations and see how likely they are to form a Latin American Union. To start, Mercosur right now includes Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay, with Venezuela having been kicked out in 2016. The group started in 1991 and has expanded to come closer to their goal of a common market. The bloc now has the observer nations of Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and even Guyana and Suriname. These observer nations do enjoy some reduced tariff rates while trading with the bloc, but not the full benefits of it. Bolivia is currently in the process of joining Mercosur, but its ascension was blocked by Brazil's Congress in 2012. President Lula of Brazil has been pushing for Bolivia's approval, although it hangs in the balance of upcoming elections. Mercosur in the global economy acts as a major trade bloc. The 4 current members have agreed to adopt a common 35% tariff on all goods imported from outside the bloc and adopt a common trade policy. Mercosur country citizens have free movement of travel and can live and work in each other's countries. Mercosur has not reached a trade deal with the US, but does have a 2019 trade deal with the EU that they are in the process of renegotiating. Mercosur has been successful in creating greater unification between the participating countries' economies and corralling 2 former major rivals, Argentina and Brazil, into working closely together. The union also helps to avoid turning the 2 smaller Guay states into chess pieces thrown back and forth between the 2 big South American players. Mercosur is known for its major exportation of raw resources, such as iron, copper, soybeans, petroleum, and beef. Mercosur is likely in the best spot as an organization to unify into a Latin American Union, although it appears to be becoming more of just a South American Union. The US already has trade deals with Mexico, Central America, and much of the Caribbean, which would also make it hard for these states to join the Mercosur common market without a Mercosur-US trade deal. Moving on, the other most likely organization to spawn a Latin American Union is most likely the Pacific Alliance. The Pacific Alliance is a regional integration initiative between Chile, Mexico, Peru, and Colombia, started in 2011. The alliance is not as far along as Mercosur. A common market has not been fully established, but initiatives like stock market integration and tourist-free visa travel have progressed. The alliance also has a particular focus on trading with Asia for its future. And the organization has nearly all Central and Caribbean Spanish-speaking countries as observers, with Costa Rica nearly joining as the 5th member of the Union in 2013. It's worth noting that the alliance has been on shaky ground in the past year, after Mexico's President AMLO refused to relinquish the yearly rotational presidency over the organization to Peru. However, signs have pointed to repairs of relationships in this alliance. They are now nearly complete with their first major external trade deal with Singapore. Pacific Alliance had a much greater power to it when the Trans-Pacific Partnership was still on the table, between all the PA's members except Colombia and Canada, the US, and Southeast Asian countries. Since the TPP fell apart, the Pacific Alliance has been left picking up the pieces to really get this Ring of Fire trade deal going. So 2 major organizations stand to unify Latin America, which will do it. While without a crystal ball for sure, Mercosur seems much more likely of the two to become the dominant force. It is not as reliant on the US as the PA seems to be, and already has accomplished major trade deals and stayed unified over the decades. Still, it could be that these 2 organizations stay separate, or eventually integrate with one another. Or, likely the worst case scenario, the various differences between politics amongst these nations just tear both unions apart. Obviously, integration is a hard process, and national identities will not go away. While certainly the US, EU, and China have significant influence in the region and can put in place roadblocks to unification if it threatens their dominance, it's more than time for Latin American states to gain more prominence at the global negotiating table. Time will tell whether that be as a unified voice or a multitude of smaller, disjointed voices.